Hey y'all, 5 minutes till start time. So a good time to futz with the chain or whatever all else needs to get done. Thank you.
Is everyone good to go? Oh, yeah, I'll add Yumish, Kurt. Okay, want to see what's sent.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Anyone not get it or not ready? Okay, cool. Advantage 1, Japan has major cyber vulnerability, specifically China, Russia, no code pilot, 24 Japan cyber cause concern, China, Russia, no code, all have a key places, China, willing to use capability, Japan, so limited, China, so Japan, China, Russia, well, no code, challenge regional society, center, technology, IT, IIT, visa, world, society, cyber tech, JSC, will I have an advanced technology, makes JSC vulnerable to scenarios where Japan is worried about the use of cyber disruption to JSC and attacks against critical infrastructure, Japan, first war making, first China, graze on attacks during CPAC with crises and Russian false flag attacks, causing extinction, Allison 17, edge of war, all communication between forces of Chicago's headquarters, with cyber attack disrupting systems, Japan, blame China, very little hesitation, Washington. U.S. being elated and warships over China and Japan, U.S. and not by over construction of oil, those are low photos of false flag operation by Russian teams, U.S. and China to call for the Washington war, so in China attacks war, a vessel at a full scale Pacific war, certainly possible. China's rising great situation, which actually led to trigger conflict. Second, no code cyber attacks caused nuclear meltdown, least so war only for defense assaults. Adams 20 to cyber operation caused meltdown, and nuclear caused loss of a life meltdown appears to be the event following a high danger state will be considered of an armed attack relevant to the election. We underestimate the government should respond in partnership with U.S. will take action self-defense and will commit to use of force. The armed attack will probably legal justification response consequential way in favor of party measure to not wait for attack, not every opportunity to be run taking position over make collective self-defense will lead to enhanced cyber deterrence and improvements in response to action mitigating risks. Third, critical infrastructure attacks cause extinction drill. And 12, attack will raise our civilization. We have lost time to be legal but wonderful for catastrophe cyber attacks on targets. Uranus and attack race similar to generate power get a similar hour cause them to explode the demon monsters or people would have every military weapons will cause loss of accumulated see the worst nuclear exchange scenarios. Japan is at a critical threshold of a chink in the armor, and China and Noko are already inside. Must become proactive, not make a lot of mistakes. Japan is under lessons in cyber attack attacks, so anticipating multiple use of participating across Japan, the reach of stress attack is actually to focus on target Japanese limited China and Noko attacks in progress of state compromise party voters data infiltration and attack compromise indicating filtering a long-term attack would enable damage methods. The US and Japan had declared a cyber can cause an armed attack without hand deter hacking in the gray zone. Japan must evolve their legal standards so Santo Tori legal holders not that people just like giving out this information for context of the alliance against Japan for international attacks cyber attack causing undertake and global tokens and generation defending for Beijing as a strategy cyber Japan is not particularly ideal or how will defend itself if Japan is able to overhaul defense policy and walk a loss of we know with this competition if Japan is unable to rise over one side onslaught Tokyo might be on liability to coalition Beijing will see to undermine trust relationship between Tokyo Washington China might run information warfare against Japan. Japan wants to make that shift but not sure if it's legal. The key question is how international law via the NDT applies to cyber. Adams 20 that aligned to an treaty is well defined the international law foundation principles that between a peace and war state treaty separate attack or prohibited attack of cyberspace of Japan way cyber presents condition that deviation from constitution and interest in system of international life towards proactive posture of Japan domestic law like Japan is working towards a handboard issue within cyberspace like system that's less Japan a question of a double supporting legal obligation distinguishing cyber attacks and operations short of that clarifies that collective countermeasures and low attacks are legal because they're not used in the force concept 20 the cyber combined activities not rights on attack cannot be addressed by self-defense state that are option are used to force countermeasures and countermeasures are a useful component to defend forward activity that defending his operation and direct attack a state denials of attack state argument under countermeasures but it could operation are not used to force a cease be a malintent because they exercise countermeasures financial amounts to probably not collected countermeasures a compromise was to the first draft articles not allowed me to not prohibit articles to answer the question of teacher law for should be ready to save a collective measure that is the best strategy cost of 20 the collective countermeasures leverage advantage of all state is best most specific to benefit from collective countermeasures until it's actually potential of significant collective countermeasure a collaboration law operation that do not erase legal concerns as a defense collective countermeasure cause collaboration laws address persistence for the hostile likely because the cost of action revenue this reaction and events will be very from your cross when it determine effect of collective countermeasure aggression less likely to conduct operation out of fear of better resource allies collective countermeasures likely to ensure retribution deep integration collective countermeasure reduce likely to increase chance of cyber response removal resource or target states need of a system review and classify armed detectors by armed response allied response collective countermeasure may sort of to override an incident absent trend towards new cyber allied option through individual state obligation weeks 20 I states that had discussed about the countermeasure states that starting to develop social allies legislation laws of cyber the countermeasure that address the cyber states is becoming an issue to the concept of recent individual collective non-forceful legislation so we have position that states are not directly to make kind of apply countermeasures to the reported states of crossing between a law of action just look to the states reported in response to budget and recent states to breach a collective countermeasure statement the collective countermeasure that says opinion cures so the bench was override prohibition on an opinion countermeasure because else we got object level state cyber countermeasure one attack the countermeasure based on opinion the purchase is crystallized that legal clarification with crystallized Japanese support for defending forward does not lead to preemption loss in 20 offensive has to seek means clearly essential to my sake of first preemption to move to this illegal makes it part of an option undertaking proper to US defending for calls for action surveillance planning out defending will also seek all activated source will the action of defensive take place for hostile available offensive pre-interaction. I see no signs of option because of own spread in the area and only allows for policy natural for trying to pay Japan offense, defensive oriented advantage to ICJ strong ICJ force installs existential risk. You said 20 ICJ stress international lines for vision enforcement mental peace. International laws vital for prosperity. No taking pride. A security promise to resolve at the national level without cooperating unless it's respect each state one level cooperation made collapsing by some rule as opposed to arbitrary power that can you slack me for plan or discord me your plan, Bernie? I think I might have been reading the wrong thing. Reliance on ILO as opposed to arbitrary powers elemented disputes by peaceful enforce over greater success of the ICJ critics are wrong as key to war prevention effective law as Galadi and Shani and 311 levels are reclaiming a marginal restoration made as a piece of equipment as the with a number of violent conflicts provided a guide related to a huge side of battle even if Monday settlement service made the essence comes with which jeopardize security. The alternative is to resort to unilateral force to settle disputes in today's world that risk extinction culture and aid for need for a rules-based international studies that are greater self defended by unilateral force to return human survival. We have seen tendency to act under discarding obligations to return to classifies international disposable business until serious of the world lost by society where conflicts are resolved by unilateral force that should cause major conflict behavior puts a world at risk. U.S. disengagement from the ICA will unravel the alio. Anderson 18 disengagement from the ICA could have consequences that led to dependency which enhanced the ability to share nothing guarantees to give me overseas less than climate support use decline of business to price opportunity articulate legal reasonableness okay impression of U.S. action illegally justifiable walking away the process and shaping U.S. seem to abuse the currently interview period combination of the international law can prove useful reinforcing rules organizations activities to dismantle and expand U.S. freedom action would same for China Russia and the Asian research until excitement for change over equip your successfully navigate the community preserving global order has improved quality of low risk bringing the system down. A plan of United States federal government should determine its defense pact with Japan cannot be activated by cyber operations not constituting sufficiently grave use of the force because such activation will be non-compliant with a decision of the International Court of Justice. ICJ is key in perceptions of non-compliance spillover causing global wars. It's a reverse causal Warszawski and states that if the ideals should be protected must be through ICJ must stand between international law of the U.S. and the violent such law that U.S. which on mechanism of the U.S. continue to describe these apparatus setting North Society back century and eclipses the security beset by appearing to war unless well as not just resource the principles of international law fail to resolve the issue ensures emerging challenges can't be settled. Above 12 ICJ critical for survival influences declining rallies and influence address compulsory jurisdiction legitimacy of compromise and members ICJ is possibly based on education to be monitored issues considering environmental terrorism and trafficking of global funds during attention ICJ is local to tackle disputes of judicial powers Biden doesn't change anything Alvarez 1120 but Trump has a controversial impact will take less for his expectation for fully NDT a lower the need to be expected for reason to be low Biden will only take a margin with respect to elections to ensure potential education that Biden no longer benefit Trump has assigned a compulsory jurisdiction marked a compulsory jurisdiction root causes that we withdrew compulsory jurisdiction when the ICJ rejected our approach. Anderson 18 which also was trying towards using the ICJ will have U.S. initially cited compulsory jurisdiction withdrew consent after ICJ issued on failed jurisdiction and Nicaragua jurisdiction become contingent on specific treaty and creating limited exposure U.S. as sought to avoid president can fake title loan guy ref in 20 multilateral treaties under global order returning will be readily available to president with caution which are very accepted has been the jurisdiction of the ICJ could use Reagan Bush and Trump on which also could have future president reverse the decision rejoin is no intervening actor with respect to ICJ though defender for original advice and effective if a future president was injured rejoining ICJ jurisdiction and president will be policy judgment U.S. brooding over Nicaragua heart of our entire relationship with ICJ down rushing 20 then 12 the impact on compliance by U.S. will subsequent release was not favorable attempt to reinforce Nicaragua's uniform effect and efforts to reinforce the court's decision courts regard arguments to distinguish from Nicaragua to because having Nicaragua so only relevant prior case Roberts found in Nicaragua that U.S. cannot relinquish by change rules of U.S. as secretarial jurisdiction approach and decline appears to be Nicaragua is not initiated cases Nicaragua has accepted new traditional commitments Nicaragua persists of slow effects for U.S. towards our international jurisdiction institution continuing negative view impeding certification executive branch policy of any cyber can constitute attack facially repudiates Nicaragua and whole UN charter do check in 18 the lack of U.S. organizing professional to use force on attack legally problematic given definition ambiguity respond to legal use force in conflict international law any claiming of a right to reject a normative framework the U.S. DoD policy country providing obligation of U.S. rejects attack on ability to resort to force the role of actually interpretive rules rejecting Nicaragua U.S.'s purpose and or rejection new ones are affected by effectively invest in the prohibition of use of force the DoD may only limit of internal assessment violates legal alternative use rejects primary role of Security Council of failure to incorporate Nicaragua U.S. ignores international obligation Nicaragua actually prohibition use of force the DoD fails to recognize the position United States the United States research disregard distinction violates obligation plan stalls compulsory jurisdiction and crucial development cyber was legally allowing limiting countermeasures do taken 18 the considering lack of consensus as to what a state's relationship practice should be treated is unlikely for treaty making can be prolonged lack of consensus does not but customary law does not require explicit acceptance and may be combined based on density state practice the United States could accept and implement reasoning by ICH threshold announced in Nicaragua as far as cyber empower the ICH clarify cyber military so as well when avenue court may clarify applicable customary threshold in Nicaragua cyber record could reissue Nicaragua and holding cyber norms. Mark that cyber. That's last card.
Okay. Are you good?
Give me one quick second. Yeah, I'm good.
What is sufficiently grave?
There's no like one specific definition. We can tell you what it excludes. It excludes like attacks that would be like in the gray zone, low level that happen daily. Things that would include it would probably be things like significant loss of property, life, etc. It's a standard that is used in the Nicaragua decision when they decided upon that case. So it has existing precedent.
For cyber, though?
Yes, for cyber.
Okay. When you say defend forward, you mean they develop OCOs, right?
Bernie can answer that question better. You're muted now.
Shoot, sorry, I unmuted myself on Discord instead of Zoom. So the internal link is not really necessarily to Japanese development of OCOs, but rather Japanese like legal willingness to sort of actively defend. We have a whole bunch of cards that say that Japan is unwilling to. What?
What does actively defend mean if it doesn't mean offense?
Active defense per like the 1AC Glosserman card indicates that Japan and the US would take defensive actions that are sort of preemptive insofar as they like engage in adversarial networks to stop adversaries from being aggressive. Actions are defensive in nature, but they seem offensive. So Japan is prohibited from doing them now.
They could include OCOs. Examples are evidence gives like surveilling the systems or potentially planting malware in their sort of networks before they like.
I wanted to the argument you were talking about above, which was like the ILAW key card. So like when Adams is saying that Japan is like looking to ILAW, it's in the context of like they're looking to ILAW to see if it's like appropriate to develop offensive weapons. What about the plan is the thing that like the plan kind of says the opposite?
So two things. One is that the second advantage is basically that we create those norms that Japan is looking for. So that answers like the basic root of the question.
So to be clear, the way the plan clarifies, if I can chime in real quick, Sadao, is that by establishing a threshold for a cyber armed attack, the plan clarifies what is not legal, but also implicitly clarifies that operations below that are legal. Our argument is that Japan is deterred from engaging in active defense in the status quo because they think all cyber operations are illegal. The plan's clarification makes them more willing to use low-level operations.
Like the process of the plan is that the U.S. brings it to ICJ and listens to their decision. Yes.
The process of the plan is that the U.S. accepts the ICJ's jurisdiction over Nicaragua and uses that to limit its definition of armed attack in the cyber context.
It does not request a ruling over the plan. It does not consult the ICJ over that particular issue. It accepts the decision in Nicaragua as compulsory. Are we running prep or is just being sent?
I sent it. It's 7 in the case in Japan ICJ. Does everyone have it? Georgetown, are you good? Okay, I'll wait. Okay, everyone good? Sweet. Vagueness outside to specify precise detail and condition that appeals to already specified meets the ground by eliminating structure based on specific commitment to destroying class, which prerequisites to all debate, patent fit, and meets they solve nothing right 19. Some condition, but others there's important variance across different conditions. When airlines more bait consider elements to geographic area that introduce uncertainty about compliance of use in precise terms without defining the error, understanding and completeness, making the tree more incomplete. Important because incompleteness may reduce compliance rather than clarify trees. Some democracy sometimes muddy the water. T substantial limit. It cannot leave open the possibility of future action. Whoever 6 acts and not substantial limit solicitation because I leave open the possibilities. Has to lift open alternate channels, was therefore not a substantial limit. The plan doesn't terminate the defense fact about neg versus limits, allowing any small alteration explodes the number of cases, makes neg preparation impossible, incentivizing condition of the weak seconds ground small changes make accessing core neg DA ground impossible because it lights fundamental question of the literature, politics, Biden's gearing up to push infrastructure. It's the top priority, currently 325 Biden made declare successful president have been successful because they know what time they're doing second priorities, what needs to be done next, major initiative rebuild infrastructure, all passed with PCs, key colon 21 powers that 600 senators from both parties will build these politicians can be described as fragmented their cause. Deal makers comfortable meeting the vote spreader to corral voters to wrangle consensus bills across the finish line to helping fight the agenda will be by himself. The president does have political capital spending on pushing his policy. He has to know how to horse it in, but in whole votes and Congress didn't that look at the state here for passing a significant infrastructure bill because right that in a long time I know these are sensitive. There's a lot of negotiating compromise can be done, but Biden policy initiatives sets up the solid point from which the amount of bipartisan campaign to drive legislation across Capitol onto the White House to plan fractures unique world over 20 debates about grand search center on reduction alliance. In fact, basic challenge of future domestic politics failure to manage leave them on the outside. Strong pressure exists for Dempsey on Trump. Bipartisan identities from bipartisan ideas restrain. Do not say well with the bigger majority support alliances which restrain and criticize restrain as a value from standing for values remain of interest ignoring these cost and politically restrain face danger of being liberal to stop politically devastating broad public narratives call for liberal order could get even more pronounced anti-China discourse strengthen anti-authoritarian narrative that could spark Cold War nation proposal get replaced by alliance commitments. It's our last best bet to stop 2 degrees warming. Economists who wants to know again entice from facing energy in America growing frequency extreme weather infrastructure has both good American news but the clear good and more reliable one. America's a source of leadership. What is about to unfold and what she was at the course of America for next decade and beyond a tremendous forcing either by North a second chance. It will be even harder to less than 2 degrees. The Lang action would meet overshoot our grounds for an ambitious climate oriented but well looks like Biden's chance of failure acts it would make America less competitive. America would also be deprived of influence over climate. America tools goals and gives experience it will bring them back. It will gain influence. There will never be a better chance. Extinctions throughout 1980 scale destruction, humanization committed to an end. Well, will be overrun by pandemic disease, internal creation rights, and migration changes in water availability, armed conflict over resources, likely and nuclear war. It's possible the advantage ground plan the United States federal government should, in coordination with Japan, maintain its current robust cyber lines committed in the air of the plan to publicly declare reconstitution efforts in the event of attack, publicly declare sanction regime, respond to various levels of cyber attack, maintain ability to fully respond if needed, engage in law enforcement cooperation against cyber crimes, and encourage global cooperation on the issue, engage in collaboration with private industry, expand intel cooperation and scenario planning. Both recent cyber domain seek a domestically legally binding Article 36(1) ruling from the International Criminal Court regarding the legality of the current commitments to Japan. It deters attacks. April 17. If a cyber event for which either is independent defense and resilience, any opportunity to understand the U.S. and Japan established a mutual agreement required expertise and resources to repair, accelerate reconstitution. Might question whether its event was worth the evidence. This could contribute to deterrent economic tools may offer option for imposing custom malicious actors and deterring the U.S. and Japan should reinforcing malicious activity falls under activity alliance seeks to deter demonstrating themselves with magnify undesirable consequences on the adversary. The OCS advantage ground plan. The United States federal government should seek a policy with allies who have mutual defense effective response to cyber threats below the level of armed attack they're defending for, but recognizing sovereignty does not apply below the level of armed attack that solves Goldman 20 the norms of emerge through practice and nature through discourse of the last 10 years. The U.S. when it's emergency factor norms anti-ethical to U.S. interest normalized because the U.S. did not push back. The U.S. began countering practice that could counteract this threatening incursion normalization. So to meaning U.S. interest existing condition do not allow the U.S. to dictate norm adoption normalization hold more problems by persisting engaging contesting cyberspace aggression. U.S. can draw parameters around what is acceptable to the plans have a foreign role to play by engaging directly with and explaining U.S. preferences to alliances. Trilateral relations are reviving now, but will feel absence sustained U.S. support. 321 Moon hope the election of Suga would provide opportunity renewed Japan ROK relation. Meanwhile, the U.S. under Trump, the second guest of the Valley view U.S. alliances in Asia, curtailing Washington's ability to assume its role as a bridge builder. However, the Biden came to rejuvenate local Washington and initiated cost-sharing deals with both Seoul and Tokyo and consultatory tone with Japan, highlighting importance of Tokyo has been subdued. Korea sending tickets to Seoul were mutually important, while U.S. meetings elicited support on the importance of trilateralism. Research remains far from formidable. Integrity of mutual defense commitments is key. Straight for 19, we need to be frank about downside shifts and should continue to escalate. Network of allies crucial advantage in our competition with Russia and China. Alliances are unique. They give us opportunity to train and improving capabilities like Japan and SOCO. Two, for most important analysis, Japan is the cornerstone, Korea's legitimate, both understanding long-term risk of rising China violating norms on cyber IP research and Russia turning to 40 specific theaters, both considered by role-based order. U.S. believes integrity for mutual defense must persist despite friction in other areas. U.S. with allies to safeguard rules and norms and Indo-Pacific secretaries aware of the important roles that Korea and Japan play. Both are leaders of the SI, which works to enhance interdiction. WMD, U.S. has made a commitment to both countries, Northeast Asia and Indo-Pacific will be safer when the USA, Japan, and South Korea work together. Slow steps now. U.S. credibility is key to check inevitable nuclear war. About 20 trilateral co-op is more than a force multipliers and integrity, ensuring U.S., SOCO, and Japan can prevent catastrophic widespread destruction. SOCO and Japan's ability to cooperate remains open now. The U.S. has counter and impeded by bilateral strategic commitments towards assured security and incentive for Japan, SOCO co-op remain if Turkey and the CEO will allow co-op with the U.S. weakening opportunity costs will be significant. Left with the resources other than that ad hoc max that would not be coherent and efficient, could lead to miscalculation and greater loss of life if they do not make adequate to co-op simultaneously and peace and ad hoc will fail in the crisis of consumer and should incrementally but sufficiently improve their security co-op despite its support should U.S. leadership should continue to encourage both small step and near steps can be the way of engagement agreements are terminating vulnerabilities could lead to miscal dip cap support for Iran deal now and again 140 lawmakers urge up by for consistency comprehensive deal with Iran and devices moment it's a rare bipartisanship. But maybe sure Libya's administration pushing for a negotiation with Iran and other powers that could involve controversial tactics. Letter signatory process are going to include top lawmakers on both sides that are urged by to return to the deal in order to bring Iran back into compliance, saying that it should serve as a starting point for negotiation. The letter provides opportunity for administration to see those members that would approach that we're trying to allow flexibility, signal that lawmakers are willing to give the Biden room, negotiate so like they'll get space that they need. The deal is viable and avoids nuclear economy, but requires capital and focus. ICG 21 Iran nuclear ingredients seemingly 10 U.S. as Iran violates restriction in response to U.S. sanction fortune significant non-prolific games. Biden should swiftly re-enter the deal to allow nuclear crisis to restore provide foundation for future negotiation that the deal survives at all highlights strength of its bargaining rolling back Iran's nuclear activity restoring it essential with Biden will require Washington to move quickly in good faith towards reviving the agreement subject to diplomacy. Additional demands would cause discord. The plan trades off SRE 20 critical position remain vacant, making it more difficult for the department to do work on a global stage for the State Department. Let's be siege diplomats face a significant challenge representing the U.S. withdrawing from international defense back from responsible allied states. Stand as our first line of defense on all these fronts to Japan advantage. No impact of Lewis 20 cyber catastrophe requires organization Mexico's most senior opposites playing recon acquiring our building so it requires research and expertise companies make a security priority actors like ability to cause physical damage. Russia has forbidden access. There's certainty about ability to treat there and willing to risk a massive retail. No one has ever died from cyber attack. State use of espionage, coercion below the use of force not. War in never escalation never could absence such as high degree of control near the Russian or China would be well served by attack. So narratives counter multiple targets are hurt, damage people come in and say and quickly repair. Japan attacks now thump ambiguity good met to 14 Abe changes in Japan constitution recognize the right to collective self-defense in the case of armed attack. The signals Japan stronger will to be more practical for no practical implication reinterpretation remain unclear. There's no internationally agreed upon definition of armed attack. It's challenge to provide overarching clear threshold of duration and intensity and scope which cyber attacks would fully or partially constitute armed attacks in both countries to respond to international law and official clear-cut definition of public good prime adversaries are launch cyber attacks on the threshold and can hamper all allies from responding collectively swiftly when a new type of cyber attack appears. Japan grid resilient good 20 NRA made official that infrastructure will hit a cyber attack. It has taken all appropriate measure to curb such attacks on IT infrastructure and says that no day was covered by cyber attack on nuclear power plants. Non-US cyber groups are often found targeting infrastructure they conceal or lock it down until ransom state India nuclear power plant hit by a cyber attack in July 19 and no damage to the physical infrastructure. DOE 17 the ICJ advantage no internal link no reverse causal evidence. Japan is just one instance, multiple all causes all bug. 12 to renew the influence of the court of vital order reforms must be undertaken removal of justice from permanent member states. 7 compulsory jurisdiction abolishment of Article 31 and overhaul the re-election Security Council generates a conflict of interest. Enforcement will be subject to negotiation against was enforcement offer 1 big 5 refuses. ICJ doesn't solve war. Slow night is a misguided together with the ICJ says a reflection of the yellow law. ICJ decision have no binding force and no foreign presidential value. The authority of these signals depend on the recipient. The court disregards the political dynamics influence just and below or the relationship capacity. The ICJ pronounce law of wars limited to the law 3 complex of factors that influence how states act. ICJ's decision reflects only one variable.
You good for cross?
Yeah.
Okay. Vagueness, how much do we have to specify? We specified the condition, we specified the country, we also specified, the mechanism in the plan text. What's the threshold?
Needs to be more specific and give the precise details of how negotiations with Japan would occur so that we can have specific solvency debates. More
negotiations with Japan is not a mandate of a plan. It's follow. Like, why do we have to specify like our entire solvency?
Like, you have to specify why how the AF approaches Japan, how the commitment would be reduced. And
res basis for any of this?
Like the resolution says that you have to reduce alliance commitments. Our
This
right
writer card just says that if it's like
Good.
if a wording of an MDT is imprecise, countries get confused.
It's
Like,
not
why
just
is plan
important,
text
but
MDT
there's
text?
important variance across different conditions. The AF's threshold for what
Okay, that's enough time on that.
And our writer
the
evidence
advantage counterplan.
nothing.
The advantage counterplan for the last plank seeks a domestically legally binding ruling from the ICC. What is this proposed to solve? At
The
all?
second advantage,
Why?
because it restores U.S. credibility and means that it can restore ICJ credibility
Okay,
as well.
what is the warrant for why it restores U.S. credibility? That's just the assertion.
Well, it restores U.S. credibility because it goes to the International Criminal Court regarding the legality of the cyber commitment, and that ruling restores U.S. credibility, which is sufficient to resolve the AF's internal
Okay.
work.
ICC, like why? What is also what is a legally binding Article 36(1) ruling? I guess.
That
like, what is that article about?
That article is about how the U.S. can approach the ICJ and like what constitutes legal commitments internationally.
Okay. So our argument was about the need to repudiate Nicaragua. How does this plan do that?
I mean, it could be a result of the counter plan because it still goes to the International Criminal Court regarding the commitment to Japan. So
okay.
As the AF.
The dip cap disad, your card that says that the plan forces diplomats to fall out was talking about Trump. I guess which diplomat is going to switch to assuage allies about the plan?
Well, our evidence is quite good that as a result of the plan, the Department of State would have to go to Japan to reinforce
the line,
our responsibilities to ally.
The line you highlighted says withdrawing from international commitments. Why does he have tantamount to that?
The AF is tantamount because it requires going to Japan to clarify what our commitment is. And our evidence says that in response to reductions of commitments, the State Department would have to restore like alliance credibility to those allies. So it's not just the reduction itself, but the fallout from the plan as well.
Got it. The trilateral relations disad, your card says we need to, be committed to our most important allies. Which card have you read that says the plan is like a signal of decommitment, I guess?
Our Shriver evidence is quite good that the U.S. needs to maintain its alliance commitments to restore trilateral relations.
This is the integrity of our mutual defense. That is not the plan. Okay. Whatever. Prep, Bernie.
10 starting.
Status of the AF case.
Status quo is always a logical option, and it's a new AF. We get to do whatever we want.
708. Sorry, I was having difficulty finding it. It was sent a couple minutes ago. Is everyone good for an order? Cool. It's the Japan advantage, the ICJ advantage, the limit specification argument, T substantially limit, the OCO's counterplan, the big advantage counterplan, the trilateralism disad, the Iran disad. I think they called it the tip cap disad, but, and then the infrastructure disad. Cool. Is everyone good with that? Awesome. I'm going to start in a few seconds unless anyone interjects. Japan advantage 1 and C1. This evidence only speaks about the cybersphere more broadly. Prefer the specificity of our 1 and C impact evidence. It says that gray zone attacks over the Senkakus are uniquely likely to escalate in the Japan context, which is most specific 1 and C2. 1 and C2, the argument that attacks are increasing now is just a brink argument for us because we reduce the propensity for gray zone attacks escalating. 1 and C3, the status quo disproves it. Cyber attacks are increasing now. Actors like China aren't deterred, and Japan faces critical vulnerabilities. Only international solves. That's the 1 AC Bartlett evidence. But link turn A, red lines good. Broad 20. A deterrence rest on credibility function. Disproportionate less credibility when taken seriously because of risk of escalation, creates a risk of retaliating, and risk of violence of escalation, depends out of control, risk competition, kinetic risk, here, too large risk. The Japanese cyber countermeasure doctrine solves Adams 20. If Japan which would get necessary response to cyber threats, resistant, patient aggression will begin cyber attacks. The use of capabilities, consequence of the threat of using something not powerful, the advantage can brothers maintain a continual state of action. Japan clearly benefit from supporting the collective countermeasure necessary and often solver. There's also no link. The F skills and effects test solves and maintains some flexibility because it means some things are clearly in, some things are clearly out, but we have appropriate flexibility in between now. 1 and C4, the resiliency argument. The Japanese grids are vulnerable now. Our 1 and C evidence says that China and North Korea both already have access, which means that even if grids are broadly resilient, Japan's aren't go to the ICD advantage. 1 and C1, we solve all of the Nicaragua all causes by proposing the U.S. The Nicaragua is the defining issue. That's the 1 AC Anderson card. It says that it is the defining issue that stopped the U.S. from compulsory jurisdiction at all points in the future, which also answers 1 and C2 because the plan isn't just one instance. It's the key defining issue for all of our 1 AC evidence. 1 and C3, the plan and the Anderson evidence also answers all of the all causes because the plan's the defining issue that speaks to the U.S.'s relationship with the ICJ and whether or not it's binding at all. 1 and C4 is uniqueness for us. It says the ICJ isn't binding, but we give it binding force over the United States, which restores its credibility. It means that the ICJ regains its structural propensity to reduce the structural propensity to reduce conflict escalation. Go to the limit specification argument. 1, we specified a limit in the plan. It's quote cyber operations not constituting sufficiently grave uses of force because such activation would be non-compliant with the decision of the International Court of Justice. Unquote. Making us specify any more than that is arbitrary and is basically and is infinitely aggressive because there's no resolutional basis for any specification other than some specification. You should also default to reasonability. That'll be on the other topicality argument. Anything else causes substance credit. But 3 ICJ rules limit by 11. A tribunal provided elaborate limits on self-defense. Or the ICJ rules that GL 1 state intervening despite limitation left of jurisdiction in any binding capacity. T substantial 1 we need by substantially reducing its decision, which will declare cyber attacks in Japan. Sure. The limit specification argument, don't vote negative on presumption. Obviously, we specified in the limit in the plan, and we have evidence defending how that limit would be implemented and why it would be good, which means the affirmative is a good idea. T substantial 1, we meet by substantially reducing instances in which we'll declare cyber text on Japan, evaluate the plan text in vacuum is the only objective metric. 2, counter interpretations significantly restricted a district of text 11, substantially but significant restriction on the condition under which an individual can perform major activity. 3, preferred AF, flex arbitrarily bracketing out fast prevents innovation. That's good on a limited topic. B, topic education, key to learn about core lines commitment. C, picks every F under their interpret becomes a pick for the neg, makes it for being possible deep precision. We had an opportunity to vote for terminating chose not to, which proves are arbitrarily considering the rest to get out of substance. 4, functional limit checks, solvency advocates like traits, deterrence and assurance, all prevented explosion of Fs. 5, reasonability goods good enough competing interpretation incentivized to raise the bottom crowds out substance cause judgment intervention. D, OCO's counterplan 1, permutation to both. 2, permutation the counterplan is the way the plan can be done. 3, links net benefit unilaterally establishes how OCOs will happen, and red lines for military response, which emboldens adversaries, freaks out allies more than the plan because it's not just an adjustment of how we comport with international norms. 4, cancel the Japan advantage. 8, Japan cyber policy models applicability of international law to cyberspace. That's what Adams means. Failing to alter that threshold to clarify actor defense isn't an armed attack. Can't put Japan in lockstep with the US because confusion persists. B, must do the plan with Japan, otherwise resort to escalatory kinetic response. According to Jensen 20, lack of the collective cyber response options have the effect of incentivizing victims to overclassify an incident that the US cyber trolls of the conflict state or not cyber capable may feel adequate need to apply non-kinetic response possible victims capable of find an armed attack in order to extend possible responses. 5, cancel the SCJ advantage. All of our offenses intrinsic to accepting the Nicaragua decisions threshold for armed attack, failing to explicitly accept that threshold fails to revitalize credibility. That's Anderson. 6, picks for a reason to reject the team seals the offers makes generating offense impossible. Dex clash or interpretation to fire counterplans must be functionally textually competitive. 7, conditionality to reason to reject the team encourages run gun negative strategies, which discourages in-depth options. Disregard provides limited flex results are offense. The advantage counterplan thing. 1, permutation to both. 2, permutation to the plan and any combination of planks. 3, permutation to the counterplan plan sinks. So plank 6 is indistinguishable from the plan based on how they explained it in cross 4, cancel the Japan advantage. The thesis of our advantage is that low-level Chinese cyber attacks cannot be deterred, which means that only offensive Japanese strategy can solve. 5, cancel the SCJ advantage. Our offense is premised off the US's interpret international law being bad. The counterplan fixes that. The 6, plank 1 makes Japan a defense impossible, which was above. The 7, plank 2 fails. Can't deter low-level attacks on my rating. And seeking to deter the offense, obviously back like the EU should be pursuing more active capability of aim to disrupting the US has more to lose because it's gone further in innovation connectivity. Difficult to convince leaders that costs out with the benefits. It turns us all about perception. Many adversaries less within the incredibly threatening seizures from the then Soviet leaders misunderstood. There's not much to change. Virtually impossible to deterrence the working hard to determine why. Washington should not be special for policy on a strategy whose decision not be evaluated. Fight occurs in the gross, and if the US should spend more time preempting than degrading. 8, plank 3 fails. Can't deter attacks and co-op is impossible in current norm environment. Per 1, AC COSOF answers to the OCO's counterplan. Answer this. 4, 9, planks 4 and 5 fail. Our ability to deter fails, which was above. 10, plank 6 can't solve advantage. It's the ICC, not the ICJ, and the US would refuse to be bound, which means it can't solve their offense. Binding jurisdiction is key. Also, the ICC only punishes people, not countries. This makes no sense, but we also get new answers because no solvency advocate, which is also a reason to read that team because it makes it for me impossible. 11, links to net benefit, asking the ICC for a binding releasing similar to the plan which links all of their offense. Now go to the trilateralism. Decide 1, non-unique. Japan is facing increasing cyber attacks now. The alliance can't patch key vulnerabilities, which means Japan doesn't think the alliance is credible in cyber, and China hacks weaken primacy. That's Bartlett and Nikita. 19, Papia went out. Cyber attacks in Japan, which are garbage on level commitment is unusual to users. Once the cyber attempted to be tepid, trying to ramp up cyber attacks in Japan. All the videos take military action for these attacks. Language unusually strong. There are sides that allies less willing to accept status quo, letting go barriers and cyber attacks. Slide 2, no link. The alpha adopts the Nicaragua decision scales and effects threshold in cyber for the purposes of our MPT2, but Japan, it's not seen as a unilateral bolt from the blue, but rather as realigning with international commitments, which increases alliance credibility. 3, no link uniqueness and turn vulnerability probing a lack of legal agreement fractures the alliance with the F-solve Kohara 20. Japan's the third my cyber attacks. The US and Japan agree that their treaty covers cyber attack challenges remain lack of legal framework or just cyber issues related to countermeasures. There are different thresholds to activate collective self-defense discrepancy. This makes cyber challenging for Japan. This is making it difficult without international consistent including the US setting a countermeasure gauging the skill of damages establishing red lines challenging. But Japan limits the use of force strictly to the US discourages the discussion criteria for US important for the alliance. The US and Japan should great doctrine support decision making countermeasure the most difficult to solve due to ambiguity divergence and inertions of red lines. The US and Japan should discuss what they can expect. This will enable multiple averters this cyber attacks. 4, link turn A. The F results in a more effective Japanese ability to defend forward in conjunction with the US ability use of force through collective countermeasures. Per 1, AC COSOF, which increases alliance credibility. Leave 17, countries already hedging America should not intervene at the same time. China pressure doing so would invite country to act aggressively, and China discourages involvement in their capabilities as well as risk confrontation when leadership is added to Washington with strong alongside partners. Collective countermeasures less likely to arouse major attribution of the major retribution, which will deep integration with the US, France, and Asia. B. The F would hash out the details in private with Japan first meets that solves French team coordination for the hedging consultation give ally access to info about Indian intention. This information reduces fear of being about the ally, so that's secure knowing whether the ally has for warning mitigating strategic surprise. The ally sees partnership as reliable. Coordination increase leverage advantages offset and implement free writing. Coordination and they do support the ally will incentive for good graces. Coordination makes access to Japanese plan without this ability to diminish would be significant. 5, no link. A. Their evidence is a joke says absolutely nothing about the plan or reducing commitments more broadly, but B. There's no reason the plan area is key. Their evidence is about the alliance more broadly, which means which is still in place post-plan. 6, the U.S. isn't key. Their evidence asserts Washington and help, but it doesn't say that Washington's key. 7, non-unique, no internal and link relations are shutting down recovery impossible. How do we feel? 20, the debate is microcosm relations have been transited to societal pressure. Mr. Trump, attention to flare career fatigue permeated Japanese society. Two countries had a low nuclear solution, but had the Moscow keep gain traction because Japanese period look for a new topic to be enriched about to confirm feeling mistrust and ambivalence. We have seen an increase in research in national defense, diplomatic summits, initiated online platforms have good perception for issues. 8, no internal and any actual escalation. Their impact chart is terrible and doesn't cite any flashpoints that Iran has said. 1, dip cap is fake, especially true of the plan, which complies with international law, and Biden wouldn't lose leverage because of that. 2, no link. We line up with the Nicaragua decision, which isn't perceived as the U.S. unilaterally doing anything that's bad for credibility or abandoning an alliance, but also 3, link turn complying with the ICJ restores U.S. credibility internationally by binding us to the ICJ, which none of their evidence assumes, and means that the plan is perceived differently. 4, cross-apply assurance answers. If we win, the plan is not perceived as abandoning an alliance. This doesn't apply. 5, revising the JCPOA is impossible. Sanctions, bitterness from Trump means Iran nuclearization is inevitable, and it doesn't solve an impact. 6, diplomacy isn't the issue. Politics is come back. 310. Biggest obstacles, neither diplomatic nor technical. They are political. Both the U.S. and Iran have passed domestic legislation under by the agreement. Iran elected a new president in June, which will further slow diplomacy and certain new principles. There was an Ramadan card the calendar. 7, no re-entry. Too little time, and Biden is already under my negotiations. Saunders 326. The challenge will be to re-enter the agreement within a short time frame by 2022. Domestic landscape look very different. Biden strikes Iran back missiles great for their tensions. The infrastructure decide. 1, no link. Cross-apply the stuff. Cross-apply the stuff from the Iran decided proves that the plan is not perceived as abandoning an alliance, which is what all their evidence is about. 2, filibuster, a lack of democratic unity, and other things. Thumping means that loss of political capital is inevitable. 3, can't vote on this. Just had no details on what's in the package, and it's months away. Zabalos reg 322. Package has been finalized. White House considering breaking up packages of parts of the process to build a bridge of Biden's many months away. The path related with the first infrastructure allies bipartisan beginning team to get it across the finish line. 4, no strategy for passage, which means the link is pure fabrication. Senators haven't even talked about it. 5, one pass link store is garbage. Petty B 322. Biden took up over together through Congress and partisan division. Massive tax all lead to a dead end. House Democrats are moving forward to the Senate, but haven't got enough. The board raising taxes and anathema. Marketed anathema. 6, there's no climate impact. The bill doesn't solve for me because it's too pro-lengthy, pricing, and uncertain. And other actors like India and China are more important actors, which the bill can't solve for because it doesn't affect international actors in any capacity. The plan solves it decide better. Aligning the U.S. with the ICJ gives us the ability to have more influence on global norms, and the ICJ encourages cooperation over the environment.
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. The brawl evidence that you read on the case is talking about the SolarWinds hack and U.S. deterrence credibility as it relates to Russia. How does the AF resolve Russian cyber attacks?
I mean, that's just not really true. It is talking about the SolarWinds hack, and it does say Russia, but it also speaks broadly to deterrence theory and how deterrence functions. It says that deterrence as a theory rests on credibility, and that if punishments theoretically
literally
are
all in
disproportionate
the
to lack of
context
credibility.
of Russia. It's all in the context of Russia retaliating.
The second half does talk about Russia, but the beginning of the card says, quote, deterrence, as the deterrence scholars reading this know, rests on credibility. If the announced punishment is disproportionate, it lacks credibility.
Skills and effects test. What is the metric utilized to determine whether or not something constitutes a grave use of force?
Yeah, it's in the name, the scales and effects of the attack. So we think that what scales and effects constitute an armed attack are sort of under discussion and would be determined sort of on a case-by-case basis, but it's more limiting than the U.S.'s interpretation in the status quo.
The status quo.
No. In the status quo, the U.S. says that any armed attack, any cyber operation could theoretically be an armed attack, regardless of its scales and effects.
The Kohara evidence you've read says that the U.S. and Japan determine cyber attacks on a case-by-case basis.
Yes. The AF determines a threshold for when something is an armed attack that says the U.S. has to consider scales and effects before declaring a cyber armed attack. In the status quo, the U.S. could theoretically declare anything a cyber armed attack, regardless of the potential scales and effects.
Why doesn't that reinforce the ambiguity of the status quo if you said skills and effects still requires a case-by-case analysis?
Well, the argument is that establishing a case-by-case test.
Okay, to be clear, it's far less ambiguous because we know there are certain things that would be excluded, like small attacks that don't really impact anything.
All your
will almost certainly be excluded.
Talking about case-by-case
super high attacks that kill people, cause large destruction of property would almost certainly be included. So it is not the same level of ambiguity. Our evidence does walk that line.
Solmeyer evidence is about U.S. active cyber policy, which already exists because the U.S. has OCOs. Is your internal link about joint cooperation between the U.S. and Japan for OCOs?
No, the reason the Solmeyer card is important is because it's sort of speaking structurally to why low-level attacks are difficult to deter, because adversaries determine that they have less costs and are likely to continue pursuing attacks.
So your evidence is about the U.S. adopting a more active cyber policy. The US already has a defending forward posture. Why does the plan make that stronger? If it
Well,
already
no, our internal links, what the plan solves is Japan adopting an active defense policy. Yes. However, this card also speaks to why low-level cyber attacks are structurally difficult to deter, which is a reason why just increasing like our deterrence policy, like the counterplan does, is insufficient to solve the affirmative.
I'm going to step away during prep. I'll turn the cam on when I'm back.
Same.
It's no Ellen. The order is the advantage counter plan, then the OCO's counter plan, advantage 1, advantage 2. Sorry. Computer freezing. Okay, no longer freezing. Cool. All right, everyone's good. Sweet. Okay, wrong time. Counterplan does a few things to solve the case. 1, it maintains the alliance with Japan. 2, declares much of reconstitution efforts in the event of an attack and declares sanctions against attackers. 3, encourages global collaboration on cyber aggression. And 4, engages the private sector. Permutation to both links to that benefit because it does unilateral reductions in commitments. Same for perm to the counterplan that would sever the reduction in commitment because the counterplan maintains it does not link to the net benefit. This was not explained in the 2EC in context of all the first 4 planks. The counterplan maintains the commitment and dialogues with Japan are links to about perceived disengagement. The 1AR cannot make this argument because it was not explained in context of those 4 planks. I'm not going for the last one. That does deter attacks. So Davis evidence says that the U.S. and Japan just need mutual agreement and economic tools to deter further aggression from any malicious attacks. Plank 3, still state conflict and espionage 17. Law enforcement actions have to take their consequences with malicious cyber activity contribute to the deterrence the decision about cost and damage to Chinese military members please submit a role in the ultimate outcome of the Bombashing agreement impact with the FOBO agreement list the malicious cyber activities of the set for IP or profit agreement to routinely share lessons and work together on law enforcement building international capacity to combat cyber crimes to regularly engage other countries building the capacity to stop cyber crime. U.S. and Japan to use implement their alliance policy for deterrence in cyberspace and opportunities that an example of international leadership with content to deterring those who are a serious threat to much of the world. Plank 4, which is the private intel sharing thing, exposes and stops further aggression. Davis 17, intelligence sharing that can expand and empower the world. The industry export to the identity of malicious actors has been a key factor in changing behaviors by reinforcing U.S. deterrence. Examples include the U.S. exposure of Chinese Sunoco. Russian intelligence private sector played a prominent role in every one of those exposure. Government intel cannot do anything required. U.S. and Japan should build on growing cyber as private sector's interest or cyber threat intel efforts. Plank 5 solves ambiguity in space and cyber. Herald 17, intel sharing and creation of a common operating picture on land, the outer space, reduces the capacity of the favor actors to display ambiguity, carrying out grays and increasing transparency. Understand who is eliminating the grays and the grayness of the gray zone Charleston to question the aggressive ability to achieve grays and coercion without running explosive escalation investments in intel agreements. Super harming is promising openness for deep cooperation between the U.S. and Japan as well as SOCO, Taiwan, and the Philippines. They said cannot deter low level. This is counterplan solvency. It says the U.S. and Japan need more activity cooperating. Info sharing plus planning in the event of attack reduces risk of military attack. Lows 15 co-op measures of info sharing and training, joint exercises undertaking to improve defenses against military attack, reduce risk of espionage. U.S. and Japan to expand existing intel relationship, improve their counter cyber espionage activities. Non-compliance with IP or critical extraordinary circumstances. The threat of action could construct malicious cyber activity by those other nations. CBM is going to improve regional stability, regional put to the other cyber powers with increased ability priority for the
US and Japan. Yes, it solves the other two planks do solve. Intel sharing means that we solve interoperability problems without having to do so publicly and results in greater coordination. Code of 17. With regard to the US Japan alliance and cyber gray zone situations with be able to co-op against GOJ drops offense and separate intel and resilience to the prerequisite deepening co-op. GOJ must explain when an instance of gray zone coercion might occur. The US and Japan would develop a shared understanding, such as shared understandings would facilitate through intel cooperation info sharing without regard to the upper limit of gray zone. GOJ recognizes cyber activities can about armed attack reserve the option to invoke the right of self-defense, far less clearing the lower level grades than coercion license aerospace and clearing the criteria used to determine incident access, the capacity of police to respond when the government articulates the policy and guidance to the level of the JAS7 and respond to the colors and need to tackle how to define cyberspace situations when organizations are tasked with responding to them at point cyber responsibility shifts in the unfolding instance of grades and coercion cyberspace. The lead agencies are permitted to work. Sanctions regimes work for cyber, especially when backed up by the threat of attack. Rule 17. There are several ways to enforce deterrence by punishing legal and economic sanctions. Individuals to first list with Interpol, the list with the exchange to market access first and visas block political and convert activities impose consequence actors who may mistakenly believe they are position of sanctuary. U.S. independent is built an exploratory program. We set up result that deterrence through the acceptance of high risk level with the aim to restoring deterrence through possibility of accidental attack. The U.S. and Japan have already clarified Article 5 applies to cyber attacks. The only remaining question is determining proportionate responses. Well, 17. Cybersecurity address the overall likeness of the U.S. Japan alliance effectiveness of Japan cybersecurity critical. Both nations are meant to be human loss or physical damage to qualify as attack. Cyber attacks and not be difficult to deploy the U.S. force for the U.S. military to respond, but to respond military proportionally requires careful consideration that understanding conflict may escalate. The ICJ stuff not going for it so that stuff doesn't matter. Other counter plan not going for it can see the permutation. Jensen evidence describes the other counter plan. It says that we need to discuss cyber operations, but it's not about Japan, which is ironic because they've tacked it to say that Japan is key. Picks reject the argument, not the team, and not a pick. Conduit's a new app. We get to do whatever we want. Key to negative flexibility and key to test the app from all angles. Advantage 1. Japan is resilient to cyber. The NRA is increasing countermeasures. That's the good evidence. The Treaty Court is not about Japan nor about China. It is literally about Russia. Japan is fixing its network defense. Rule 20. MOD plans to invest 237 million cyber domain include AI to counter cyber attacks system and autonomously defend malicious emails at the level of 30 planning AI response against cyber attack. Militia wants to procure cyber information together and tactics to gather info with the tactics procedures of attacks, ransom, not nuclear meltdown. Japan protecting plans now. Good 20. NRA made artificial the infrastructure was hit by a cyber attack, taking all appropriate measures to cover attacks. The IPG infrastructure incident the data was compromised. Cyber attacks nuclear power plants. New cyber recruits are often find targeting infrastructure. They can seal lock it down until a nuclear power plant hit by a cyber attack in July 19 to damage the physical infrastructure. DOA 17. No China cyber war. There's no legal definitions and hard to identify non-CCP's interests in pure and sanctions solves out 17. Cyber attacks in the US and China are unlikely to trigger word legal definitions. Cyber attacks triggers right to declare war. It's difficult to identify cyber attacks on first. US unable to directly prove that Chinese force the attack. China exercises cyber laws to consolidate control in its own territory instead of launches large-scale cyber attacks. Logical cyber attacks happen for years. No major conflicts over in the US is likely to put sanctions on China's punishment. Over 600 entities were recently hit by cyber attacks in Japan. Kyoto 20. At least 670 Japan's entities have been targeted by cyber attacks. Exploited vulnerabilities. National Police Office has 46 days to damage would be wide-ranging attacks can easily access to seal confidential information. Robust data proves cyber strain, not escalation for 18. New emerging data sources reinforces for cyber activities. Escalation is for revolution is likely to engage in cyber conflict. Escalation for examination of 841 cyber events. Cyber activation, no impact violation events. Authors find no escalatory patterns like 5% produce a change of behavior targeted when applied intentionally invasive ones either had the adversary nor produce escalation risk. Countries avoid war. Lewis 18 cyber actions disabled the gray area when the U.S. and allies be able to use multi-force response have been sniper operations will use gray areas without triggering armed conflict. Major problems tried to avoid armed confrontation wars are sensitive and risky. The U.S. and China are no use for other forces. They will try to avoid war both were involved in other warfare and lacks to discontinue between war and peace. Their Adams evidence is about Japan, saying that Japan is unsure about developing offensive stuff because they don't know if that's accepted in ILAW. The plan clarifying has zero to do with that. They do not solve interoperability. Unilateral imposition isn't a setup for more co-op. No, AF evidence says that plan makes interoperability worse. Adams 20 defaulting decision making on the laws of the war and standards repeated in agreements do not applicable to the facts at hand could be unnecessary until to be integrated to be an area where the U.S. and Japan may enjoy states' right to their own cyber strategies. The risk of the interaction derived from legal certainty in cyberspace is very real. It's a problem the U.S. and Japan governments know well and also working to overcome. Zero chance of short-term combination. U.S. secrecy policy management rules and technical difficulty safe is 17. Within the alliance policy cannot envision any of these offensive forces in the near term in the combat U.S.-Japan organization directly may lead to sensitivities regarding the intel and capability structures listed with the specialized cyber forces as well as the management of fruitful office with significant policy, operational, tech, and legal oversight mechanisms, lack of staff and legal hurdles, stop effective offensive cyber and plan makes Japan mad. Josh, 19, the ministers from the cyber attack concept of cyber tactic has been pressing Washington to make this commitment on a case-by-case basis after consultation. U.S. and 6,000 personnel defending for cyber attack. The CF 150 people with their legal constraints tended starting the enemy system participation in an attack may be for Japanese cyber. Japanese side has given to the defendant advantage what it considered a constitutional regard to cyber offensive operation. Hard to see how Japan can get around this restriction. Advantage 2, incredibly stupid, unclear what the plan even does to engage the ICJ long term. Their evidence is about deep engagement with the ICJ. The plan is a one-off thing that is obviously not sufficient. None of their evidence assumes that. The only card assuming the plan's process is about Nicaragua. The plan does not change changed all of the Nicaragua decision, which is the bar that their evidence requires unilateral leadership fails due to the history. Goldman 20. An approach to building norms is two models of behavior. This approach perceives challenges adversaries say that various allegations of American bad behavior, global surveillance, text, two examples, in the U.S. is hypocritical. Only a robust defense of mutual defense can foster norms. Lewis 15. The purely national purpose of cybersecurity and adequate mutual defense obligation norms is the office the greatest challenge for progress finding cybersecurity treaty is not possible. Revitalize international discussions. These focus the core problem. The U.S. and Japan need commitments for consequences bad behavior in cyberspace. No consequences for bad behavior. There's no incentive for nations to change their policies. ICJ fails member states to remove judges. They abolished Article 32, which is necessary. They overhauled re-election of judges, so it's always perceived as a conflict of interest. It can't solve anything. That's the one is the evidence. Reject the stupid thing where they just assert that it solves a bunch of stuff, but never asserted any impact that they solve. The Colombia case proves Q13. Colombia is refusing to comply with the ICJ ruling, but it is not going to admit it. The Colombia will pretend there's some appeal delaying its obligation to comply. We forget how hard it is to get the countries to go to the international court rulings when they have agreed to jurisdictions really, really hard. More surprisingly, countries comply when they do not. ICJ decisions suck and mean they don't solve anything. More 12, the norms stand firmly against the aggression. The court frequently encourages aggression, covert attack, and terrorism. The court is distorted. The charter the court has departed from the high quality of legal craftsmanship. Ad hoc judges make the signal impossible. Ogbo 12, the Article 31 applies to the court. Ad hoc judges who vote for their country subject to the majority decision. The impression created by this practice speaks volumes about the ability to dispense justice. Cyber is too complex and novel for official norms to change the behavior of any powers that's rule. Cyber norms can't check war. Rule 20. Great powers have fundamentally diverging views in core concepts like sovereignty and cyberspace. Underlying norms for states and ways perceive the benefits of the inherent balance and the problems. Only in egregious cases, states often call out perceived violations, as those consequences, perceived utility of cyber tools, especially great powers, logic, and hypothetical evidence on cooperating on norms. Secrecy is too important, so norm compliance is never assured. Rule 20. State cyber activity remains shrouded in secrecy. Obfuscation makes it difficult to identify cyber norms where evidence supports the existence of the norm. Breadth and depth and conformity, often unclear nature of cyberspace makes norms totally ineffective. Rule 20. Evolving internet poses challenges for effective norms. Domain must constantly change. Low barriers to entry use cyber mean enforcement may depend on state proxy cooperation and others. Yeah, that's good. I'm good.
Good.
I didn't hear you if you said anything, but I'm good now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'll start it then. The counterplan, what does it do to engage with Japan?
It does a few things. So it declares like reconstitution efforts with Japan, and then with Japan, it declares sanctions against anyone who attacks them. It encourages global collaboration that includes with Japan and other allies on different cyber aggression, and then it engages the private sector, which doesn't really have to do so much with Japan, but it means.
I mean, you're
Japan
saying like a lot of really big things, right? But what is encouraging cooperation with Japan?
Our Davis evidence explains that process clearly and says that when the U.S. calls on other people to like indict Chinese behavior in cyber activities and increase like law enforcement actions and suggest that there should be consequences and work together to combat crime, that's like an effective policy.
Okay, how do the U.S. and Japan work together to combat crime?
Our Davis evidence describes that process and says that when the U.S. and Japan like define what constitutes like attacks and there's no longer ambiguity, which is your internal link, that means that Japan like believes in the US will still provide them cyber offensive stuff or whatever you said in 1EC cross-text that it's like defensive but seen as offensive or whatever.
Wait, so they clarify, right?
Yeah, and the US will then like continue to defend them in cyber.
Okay, what does that clarification look like? Like the US determines that Japan, some things will be responded to in some ways, other things will be responded to in other ways?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that any of the 1EC evidence says clarifying in a certain direction is important. It just says reducing ambiguity is the thing that deters them. So long as the counterplan sets some red lines, that's sufficient to deter China and North Korea because it clarifies that the US cares about cyber, it cares about Japan, and it will respond.
Sure. I guess let's talk about the case. You've sort of made arguments. Let's talk about this Lewis card. It says like a binding cyber treaty fails and that engaging with the MDT is like good for some reason. Like, what does this have to do with the F?
It says that you can't solve interoperability without increasing the commitment, which is what the counterplan does, but not what the plan does.
The Lewis card on case?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The Goldman card that speaks to the failure of unilateral leadership. What does it mean by unilateral leadership?
Means the U.S. going to the ICJ and saying we want a decision, like even if it's like with.
Does it
Japan.
mean that? Like, where does it say that? What makes you think that's what it says?
And it's like adversaries critique how the U.S. is engages with hypocrisy. Obviously, that's presuming that the U.S. did something.
The U.S. did bad things. Where does this say that the U.S. taking a case to the court is bad or wouldn't solve? Like, where does it say?
About ILR norms, which is like more than enough to answer your advantage.
I sent it. I'm gonna go to the bathroom while everyone pulls it up. Okay. The order is the Trilat DA, Iran DipCap, politics. And everyone has it. Anyone not good? Okay, cool. You can see there's no link. The plan has zero effect on trilateralism. I also can see that the U.S. is not key to trilateralism. It means that there's no offense for their link terms because the U.S. Because there's no access to any of the impacts, and the U.S. has no sort of influential signal on trilateralism. The Iran DipCap DA, I'll concede that the DipCap is not going for a politics warming causes extinction, makes the earth uninhabitable through a combination of extreme weather, biodiversity loss, ag collapse, and disease spread. That's zero defense in the 2AC, no new answers, outweighs all magnitude. Intervening actors can stop war from escalating, but warring can't be reversed, making it the only existential threat. Outweighs all magnitude. McDonald 19 and nuclear should just not result in apocalyptic loss of life. Nuclear awareness based on shaky science. There's now reliable one that can determine how many megatons would make human nation have already detonated to 2476 nukes. Humans can thrive and recover from war. Nuclear one humans cannot recover and run away. Climate change, nuclear was inevitable extinction event. Warming is a transadvantage. One see evidence is that absent grid modernization in the infrastructure build, there will be catastrophic grid failure from extreme weather events. Make cyber attacks inevitable, and adversaries will be emboldened to attack the U.S. and allies. It transadvantage suits sparks global nuclear war. Joint residents will increase the likelihood of nuclear war as supplies to disputes over critical resources become violent and
Pakistan and China will break apart warming temperatures and Mr. Crops, resulting in ethnic strife, enabling capture nuclear arms by rogue elements and their use by inciting wars over vital key to competitiveness. Paul 21 good infrastructure is also about competitiveness. By the way, put a real specific word on it. China is going to eat our lunch if we don't do it. He's not wrong. America will fall further behind if we don't invest ourselves like to seriously rejuvenate critical American industry, semiconductor production, medical supply, wheel refurbishment, and industrial ecosystems that will create true resiliency, extinction bar 28, economic prosperity, bedrock political strength, the equitable recovery would be powerful. The U.S. first undermining legitimacy of an international sending America need growth strategies that through infrastructure, strengthening Christian influence and funds a strong military. Not enough for some prosperity must be shared and mobility creates credibility for all these models as a stage for leadership, strong recovery scores to solve geopolitical challenges, position and strength enables to address a global crisis such as climate, pandemics, and refugees. The U.S. has unique tools. Yes, link reductions of the commitment, force challenges, challenging futures in domestic politics. There's strong pressure for them to un-Trump alliances. The plans restrain. George Japan does not say well with the values being strong on national security and anti-China discourse because it's perceived as a unilateral measure capitulating to China, and we cannot develop joint capabilities with Japan, and it means that adversaries will be emboldened, which is why it's evident democratic centrists want strong Article 5 commitments to global 20 Japanese preference to reflect tendencies that are outdated to admin have been supportive of alliance and U.S. Article 5 obligation. All their GOP counterparts center of gravity in the U.S. about China's interested policymakers will be hard-nosed about will be consistent multilateral. China hawks will dictate how the plans receive Shambhala 18. There exists bipartisan consensus representing type of China policy. Not only have Democrats and Republicans and corresponding consensus on how hard China policy expands professional sectors in the country. U.S. military and security commitment has long been concerned about China's military. This represents the anti-China discourse in America. If Congress is pushing back against China across the broad issues with such deep antipathy toward China, real bipartisan consensus will be impossible to change. There are some arguing for engagement cooperation, but their arguments are not for a solution. In the anti-China climate, the American hardline on China can be expected to endure. It turns the case of right joining resumption like supporter as they became imperial in Russia would benefit a domestic backlash would occur. The result of prolonged debate that caused the U.S. oscillated, creating uncertainty about commitments, raising the risk of the filibuster thumps argument is not complete filibuster over what issue. If you want to make a thumper argument, you have to read a card and say other legislation will come to the docket and Biden will spend PC on it. They have not even remotely approached that threshold. Infrastructure comes before anything else. Meyer 314, now Biden said, going relief into law. Now on to the next item, to-do list. Infrastructure lawmakers are preparing for infrastructure. Their Zalabel's rugged card sucks. I'll answer each one. First one is it's not finalized yet. That's irrelevant as long as we went into the next thing on the docket and it proves PC is needed more because he has to shape the bill and get the Senate to go along with it. But also wrong, he's finalizing it in the next few days. Garrison 325 Biden will meet with the top advisor over the coming days to finalize sweeping infrastructure package. Next one is that it's too far away. Again, this just begs the question of thumpers that they haven't even read a thumper card. Even that's why our Biden will still have to spend PC throughout the process to ensure passage. That's one, but the bill has priority. That's one. Z. Carney and Meyer above. There's huge pressure to get it done quickly. Government on 0323, the win from the relief proposal could help governor supported Democrats want to build the momentum, so they want to move quickly. Last warns that it will get broken up in multiple parts. That's a neg uniqueness argument. Makes the overall package more palatable. List 323 Biden supports points to recommend an effort to be broken in pieces. The focus may be more appealing to Republicans, business leaders, and moderate Democrats, given the bipartisan push for an infrastructure bill. The details argument is a blip. It was answered above. Their petty piece card just says that things will be hard and Biden will have to navigate a difficult political landscape, obviously, and that's why we write a PC key card that says he can do that on the 1T. Infrastructure will pass. There's critical massive attempts and centrist GOP senators who are receptive to pushing it forward and reaching a compromise. The outlook has never been better, but Biden has to persuade and corral the Senate to back in his plan, which will be contention that requires a lot of negotiating. That's cool, and there's bipartisan momentum, but PC is absolutely critical. Same old 21 why House officials have been enabling the foundation for infrastructure. The president and his team have limited political capital to raise their Senate majorities by May have until the midterm super series agenda dynamics increase pressure about him to pick out which agenda items he'll be trying to push through and which ones. Well, by the way, say the midterms are likely to be framed largely around whether the economy has recovered. Biden is likely to concentrate its political capital and reach Republicans on initiatives related to those issues. The most likely area for bipartisan agreement appears to be infrastructure during Trump administration. Lack of a concerted back push from the White House side to infrastructure weekend to punchline infrastructure will pass. PC is key. Terinsky 324 Biden proposal rebuilding infrastructure revitalizing governance have movement. I know political movement seeping right for a large tiny bill. Conservative Dems are eager to expand out Biden tests will be difficult to pass quickly through the narrow margin by the majority's programs that could be rolled out into epic single bill. Biden might be able to strong arm reluctant Dems odds of a large bill passing are very good. Their infrastructure does solve warring. Time is pressing. It's the only way to limit warring to less than 2 degrees. Delaying it ensures overshooting. They've conceded that the bill spurs American leadership, so it would get other countries on board to buy in and adopt similar measures. That's economists. It solves existential climate change. Pike 224 BBB is to cut emission by pouring federal dollars into high-speed rail and Texas Center for Clean Energy. Climate change is existential. Biden has a huge opportunity. BBB is going to be diverse investment in clean energy and sustainable infrastructure. Proposals include building electric vehicle charging infrastructure, risk assessing cash for clunkers, and launching stability and climate core. Their last argument is that the planet solves. This is a blip. The ICJ wouldn't solve climate change quickly enough. Infrastructure decisively outweighs, and it's coming now. None of their evidence says that ICJ would solve the 2 degrees threshold, which is what our impact evidence and our internal evidence substantiates.
708.
Okay, the doc is sent. Somebody use reference before speech, but the document is out there.
If I was going, then I will too.
Bernie, are you back? Okay, I'll wait.
I'm good, sorry.
Advantage 1. Advantage 2. The multi-plane counterplan, and then the DA. Anyone not good? Cool. Japan is not resilient. We're not fixing it. We're not very critical chink of the armor. Evidence of the cyber attacks increasing in number and intensity, but Japan has no recourse to solve it because if not coordinated with the US China cyber war, evidence says that it'll be likely innocent Kaku's incursion because it's a question of national sovereignty and they dropped Russia red flags, so cause extinction even absent China. The argument about how we make it worse doesn't have a war. Their card doesn't have a war. And our point is that we coordinate with China. Japan doesn't think the current interpretation is legal, so we're unwilling, but we reconcile that interpretation with their current interpretation, which makes it more willing. The short-term coordination argument is wrong. We already have a current materials. We just need the motivation, which is our 1AC card. Lack of staff doesn't matter as much because U.S. provides resources once they coordinate. Plus, Japan indigenous development is sufficient to solve now. Advantage 2. What the plan does is it aligns current U.S. Definition of armed attack with the Nicaragua decision and accepts their compulsory jurisdiction. The second part is important because it repudiates the current repudiates the Nicaragua precedent that was set where the U.S. doesn't have to where the U.S. can disregard their decision based on use of force that is sufficient to solve. We don't have to change all of Nicaragua, just a sufficient portion in which all of our evidence is very specific about and does walk the line. Their normal scale card generic evidence says that we revitalize a specific cyber, which I'll explain below. The argument about how we can't how all causes are wrong. Compulsory jurisdiction key. U.S. has initiated zero cases since the Nicaragua decision. Our evidence says that precedent spills over to other international commitments, and that U.S. being the first mover revitalizes ICJ credibility. A broadly commitment to NDT, we don't abrogate that commitment. The ICJ fails arguments are incoherent. One is that our evidence says that even if it's not like a one-to-one direct trade-off between conflict, it makes conflict structurally more likely. So in our world, conflict every flashpoint is more likely to escalate. Two is that I enter those things below. Their decision sucks argument is wrong. Empirically, countries will say yes, and it does prevent war cyber. And worse than 18 the wars was what it was minister about country get application result was interval 11 times equal activists of all the world could enter Africa when a court recognized all international difference given as positive arbitration can avoid war enmity. Arbitration still took place. Second is that our evidence says that the reason why those things are structurally impossible now is because of the Nicaragua decision in the 80s. So their evidence are internally assumes there is no impacts argument. One, they dropped transfer use of force. Carlson and Wazowski says our revision states will escalate. They dropped its key to LOAC and war prevention, which means that it causes global conflict globally. Two is the global existential threat. Two internal links. One is ICT credibility, immediate global promise of climate change, terror, nuclear proliferation, very to see the impact of the one in our forests. Our one to see evidence does say existential. Two, U.S. unipolarity, which is drop cyber norms, don't fail, reject low, generic defense or douching. The evidence acts as concedes that treaties are impossible, but says that revitalizing compulsory jurisdiction if its context is sufficient to solve. And even if not, every country doesn't follow on, they're more likely to do so. And we can carve out norms in this specific context, which was what our one to see evidence says is sufficient. Now the counter plan first, the CP does not make first is it doesn't solve one. The CP does not make Japan defend four. Japan has to be able to defend itself because they're the critical vulnerability in cyber umbrella. That's what make law and evidence cooperation is key. Absent consensus, Japan won't give the U.S. access. That's SME's evidence. And the two is that they have no explanation to how it makes Japan accept the sort of terms of accountable. Japan is unwilling to defend forward now because they think there's a legal doctrine based upon U.S. interpretation, which means that unless we clarify the legality via armed thresholds, they're unwilling to do all the things that information sharing, etc., offensive operations that their evidence says is necessary in the first place. Sanctions don't solve. Our one to see evidence says that the credibility of sanctions are incredible because the U.S. doesn't think that we're going to be able to act on them, and that the cost don't outweigh the benefits in this particular instance. Plus, we're not able to deter them. Our low-level attacks are too hard to detect, and they're able to slip over cracks, and they can't be attributed, which means that only for defending the forward solve, the Borgo and Montgomery 20 international engagement vital for defend for the Fenwick Foundation defend for our arbitration get held to establish North U.S. and points outside the cyber cannot be understood. Willing to allow U.S. operating for network support defense forward preference notification during U.S. activity outside of occasionally
even close allies, express for cultivating trust required for will require dedicated diplomacy, permutation, acting all combinations of planks. Obviously, shields because it is perceived by Congress as doing the things that are information sharing and shifting our doctrine to make it more coordinated overall. It's not perceived as an overall dip in the alliances. At worst, it basically zeros the link race on coercion argument doesn't apply to in this situation. Our evidence says that Japan has no capability to prevent that coercion, and that China and that Russia and NOCO are already inside of Japan, which proves that information sharing itself is not sufficient. They need to be active in their response. Now, the infrastructure just at top. No turns case. Credible ICJ solves better ensures a global coordinated effort rather than a one-off bill. There's no link to drop two of our link turns on assurances. One, it aligns our current cyber policy with what Japan and the rest of the international community wants, which means it's not pursued. They have no contextual evidence about the plan, no spin in the one or two. Av causes shift to defend forward that deter China better, which is the only thing their evidence says that politicians want. Three is that remember the planks on the first counter plan. This proves that it proves our no link argument because it proves that it's a permutation, proves that it's a broader conceptual shift, and it won't pass now. One, if the bill is too vague, there's zero details about what's even in it, and large partisan divides between two parties. Moderate says on tax increase, no GOP will block those tanks. And 322 Biden in general will face a difficult role. Moderate Democrats and the president engaged Republicans no new spending be asked by tax increases. Republicans are united in opposition to tax increases. No, a link turns case depends on link and durable fiat won't pass if the link's inevitable as king into a 322 limit to transportation bills and multi-year plans. Even if potholes or runaways isn't ties with Congress on minimum wage and high partisan environment on threat and develop policy before tax to hike it does include a discussion whether to raise the tax not exactly what proposal will look like. Price tag and minimum wage king to a 322. Republicans are adding progressive policies of finding a way to pay the tax size for a potential compromise given a criticism of seeing how likely will be an amendable bill to add to national debt bill includes a 50 minimum wage. Democrats have majority Republicans opposing a wage. All their won't pass cards are like 2 lines long and aspirational. Their PC key card just says that Biden it'll be a tough push for Biden, but it doesn't actually discuss the status quo details of a current agreement and is aspirational and predictive. Our evidence says that it's the quagmire now, which proves that Biden's species is ineffective and the status quo. Top of docket proves links in the top of docket proves links in that benefit. But if it's if their argument about how it will be broken up zeros their internal link, that's Zebra and Roy in 322 zero GOP is not likely to work in policy and infrastructure would be targeted and scoped to move with trigger backlash and progressive and threatening to derail the ethics and wouldn't happen at the same speed and time that co-relief did. It's going to take longer to assess however it can get real agreement for Republicans in any part. They have a link that says that a Democrat. They have a link that says that politicians don't like decreasing the commitment, and a link that says that PC key no link connecting the plan to PC, which means that they don't have a complete dissent. There's no reason why they would backlash on this particular issue, given the fact that the plan is not perceived as a retrenchment alliances, which is what their one to see link evidence is indicative of, and as well as one in our evidence. Lastly, all causes China, Russia, as well as the fact that ICJ broadly solves the terminal impact means that they don't really have a unique influence.
Okay, order. I'm just closing some stuff because yeah, my computer's being slow. Okay, sorry, I'm just closing documents because my computer is lagging. Okay. Oh, is Word closing? I think okay, yeah, we're good. Order is infrastructure, the counter plan, the Japan advantage, the ICJ advantage. Okay. Yeah, and we're gonna send cards. All right. I'm gonna start then. Warming out, waste, ensures global extinction, disease spread, mass migration, biodiversity, agricultural loss, and extreme weather. Taken together, that ensures proxy conflict in the short-term nuclear war, a little later from resource conflicts and an uninhabitable Earth, which means we control uniqueness for escalation, even if their impacts a little faster. Prioritize magnitude and impact calculus. Intervening actors solve their impacts through dialogue and negotiations, but warming's effects are irreversible, which means it's the only truly existential impact. They've conceded there's no nuke winners. There are debunked studies. Only our impact gets to extinction, but theirs can never. And conceded that the infrastructure bill is key to grid modernization to deal with extreme weather, which turns the case because upgrading the grid is the only thing that makes electricity more reliable, which turns the advantage. They've also conceded infrastructure is key to competitive. China's economy will outpace the U.S. with serious investments in American infrastructure, like lacking semiconductor protection necessary for 5G medical supply manufacturing, which are critical to resilient industrial growth. That's the Paul evidence. Economic competitiveness outweighs the foundation of international strength because it signals America's ability to provide stability to dangerous global crises, funds the military, expands markets, exports the U.S. model to filter strong recoveries necessary to solve every geopolitical impact like climate, pandemics, refugees, etc., which all solves ILO at a much more meaningful level than their impacts. The question to ask is, first, they've considered that it turns ICJ credibility, but the question to ask is, does the U.S. influence matter more for the ILO or does the ICJ? It's obviously the former. Yes, linked. Alliance commitments, reductions. There's a strong sentiment for anti-China discourse and maintaining a strong alliance posture to untrap the alliance. The pressures on them to do that. The plan is a reversal of that message. The Japan cyber links because it's seen as soft on China since we can't maintain all means necessary to respond to cyber intrusions. That's Waldorf. Article 5. Democrats and Republicans are united over support for Japan alliance and the U.S. mutual defense commitments. Policymakers will be hard-nosed to ensure that Biden's on pace with the consistency. That's Gloucesterman. China hawks dictate perception of the plan, which should frame the link defense because the plan creates an immediate shock. There's bipartisan consensus pursuing tough China policy. The sentiment isn't great. That's Trambo. Link turns the case conceded argument. China and Russia would benefit from retrenchment. Backlash would grow, causing a debate for the 1 year to oscillate, which creates uncertainty in our commitment versus milks calc. Zero answer in the 1 year that shatters the app signal, makes all of their impacts inevitable, which is our right evidence. They've also conceded a card on the case in the 2NC that says that Japan does not want the plan because they actually want more cyber expansionism. I'm going to read another link. Congress and publicate the plan Uber 19. The bipartisan support for alliances, strong backing in the military, career officials, agency, create opportunities for pressure to be united and have them America strongly support alliances, public support allies Asia on the rise for Congress, posing political sentiments make political sense. That will pass now. Our evidence is just better. Critical Democrats and centrist GOPers do want to compromise. Biden's PC is critical to that negotiation. Bipartisan momentum, but razor thin majorities needs to pick specific agenda items and concentrate on outreach to specific Republicans and Democrats on the two issues in the bill, but it needs to be perceived as some concerted push, which is Samuel's. Even conservative Democrats want to spend a lot, but the task is so tricky. He's got a narrow window, needs the space to strong arm some Democrats at the end, and the chances are good, which are Tankersley evidence. Their Tankersley card sucks. It's a more inconclusive card of the one that they read in the 2EC. The only argument is the whole thing that there's uncertainty. Biden hasn't decided on how he's going to push it. Our evidence post-date says that he's gotten a lot of pressure to move quickly because of momentum. He's already released it and finalizing in the next few days, and that he's pouring and that he's it will be fast and clear. And our evidence assumes that, or meaning this evidence is long enough. PC key does assume discussions, which is what all of our evidence says. Top of the docket does not zero have no idea how this is a thing. The last card is wrong. They've conceded that the bill does solve climate, that it would pour federal dollars, even if it doesn't get the clean energy stuff, into high-speed rail and tax incentives, which solves clean energy enough to solve our impacts. The link stuff was answered above. There are no all causes. This is a blip. Advantage counterplan solves the case. Here's the frame. The AF evidence says red lines need to exist, but don't need to be specific, which is why their definition is so vague in the first place. Essentially says the ambiguity of this quote is unworkable. The counterplan maintains commitments and publishes responses to adversaries, saying that it'll continue to work with Japan to develop cyber capabilities and defend them, which makes the response credible. Deterrence work stats. Davis, it shares routine lessons and works on enforcement, which builds international capacity. Davis says specifically for Japan, that sets international leadership, which signals to China and North Korea that they cannot attack. They've conceded our private sector arguments. Yes, attribution are when 2NC evidence says that it works for China and North Korea and Russia in the past, which is Davis that the private sector has been able to disclose, and they just do not have evidence that says it. Yes, it solves the impacts to their defend forward stuff, which they've been incredibly flippy about throughout the debate. Or 2NC evidence is that cooperative measures like information sharing, training, and joint exercises would improve defense against military attack and reduces the chance that anyone would either attack Japan or there would be any espionage. And our evidence is that if the US and Japan just discuss how to expand existing intel into their relationship, that would expand capabilities enough. Permutation do both does not shield. This is a completely new argument. Strike it off your flow. Do not make a decision on an argument that was blatantly not in the 2AC. If you agree that it does, you should kick the counterplan because they consider that conditionality is good, but it does not shield the net benefit. The counterplan maintains the alliance. Any permutation would obviously sever that because it would have to decrease the commitment. And our evidence is obviously says that the maintaining commitment specifically with Japan and specifically over Article 5 is enough, which is huge, and basically conceded because they've never had evidence about it throughout the debate. Advantage 1, Japan is resilient. They are reconciling. What resources does the plan give, does the US give to Japan post-plan? They've conceded a bunch of arguments that says that Japan gets cyber attacked literally every single day and that they're increasing that, but they do not fix those problems. Our defense world evidence says that Japan's ministry is investing 237 million in the cyber domain, but there would never be nuclear meltdown because Japan knows about it and they're working on nuclear power plants and targeting infrastructure so they can make sure that it can't be locked down or there can't be any ransom. They've also conceded that there's no China escalation. Our Zhao evidence is that China is not likely to trigger a war because they know that the US could get involved and that China doesn't even support attacks. They've also conceded that Japan is very resilient to cyber restraint, that it would not cause escalation because there are so many examinations of it, but there are no escalatory patterns. And they've also conceded that they do not solve interoperability, which is the 2NC evidence that says that Japan wants more expansion in cyber, which is what the counterplan does, but that the US and Japan could not cooperate over offensive shit. Now, advantage 2, ICJ feels the states remove their judges. They've abolished multiple articles and overhauled re-election of judges. Security Council creates lots of conflicts of interest. Columbia case proves that it's hard to get countries to carry out court ruling, even if they agree to jurisdiction. And the court encourages aggression frequently, which is proven by their covering of attacks and terrorism. Ad hoc judges make it impossible. And no 1AC evidence says that the US needs one decision in the ICJ. It says that the US isn't having a seat at the table in multiple decisions, which is the threshold that they need to reach to solve their impact.
.308 starting. Cool. Okay. Is everyone good for an order? Awesome. The ICJ advantage, the Japan advantage, the advantage counterplan, and then the disad. Is everyone good with that? Awesome. I'm going to start in a few seconds, unless anyone verbally interjects. ICJ advantage, a massive risk of the ICJ advantage outweighs the disad with barely any link to the plan. The framing issue for how you evaluate this debate is that they have no defense to the impact level of this advantage and 20 seconds of defense to the internal link level of this advantage in the 2NR, which is not enough when the counterplan only solves one advantage and they're just going for a disad. Now, there are a few reasons why this advantage outweighs the disad. First, it structurally reduces the propensity for conflict escalation. The ICJ has empirically played a role in the de-escalation of a number of conflicts per the 1AC Galati evidence, and failure to align ourselves with the ICJ causes a collapse of norms prohibiting use of force, which threatens survival because adversaries like Russia and China would have no reason not to go ham on the US and allies. Engagement is explicitly key to set norms constraining freedom of those two actors per the 1AC Anderson evidence, but they also dropped the LIO. They also dropped the LIO impact, which is the first 1AC Anderson card. It makes a claim that even if the ICJ is ineffective, the US should still attempt to engage in the ICJ so we can have a role in the shaping of international norms such to constrain the behavior of revisionist actors like Russia and China to stop conflict from escalating, which means we control a number of flashpoints with Russia and China. That outweighs because jurisdictional alignment with the ICJ is also key to international cooperation on the adjudication of a number of existential disputes such as environmental protection. Per 1AC Agboto, jurisdiction binds us to ICJ decisions, which is the only way to lock in multilateral cooperation and solve the warming impact better, which is isolated in the 1AC evidence. Even if you think the warrant in the 1AC card isn't that fantastic, the 2NR literally utters 0 words here or on the disad where we made this argument, which means that this advantage subsumes the terminal impact of the disad and controls the risk for all conflict escalation, which means that it massively outweighs on every level. Now, the line-by-line argument proper, they made 2 arguments for why the ICJ fails. Neither of them answers the LIO stuff that I extended above, which means they don't matter, but you should also read the 1MC cards after the debate. Neither of them have warrants. They say that judges can sometimes make bad decisions and that Article 31 was revoked, but it doesn't say why either of those matter. Nicaragua is key. The Anderson and Damrosch cards both say that the US's unwillingness to engage with the Nicaragua decision is the reason we haven't bound ourselves to the ICJ and is the reason the US doesn't engage. The Colombia argument is also answered by that stuff, and they dropped the 1AR card that says that empirically states have adhered, which means that even if sometimes states like Colombia don't bind themselves to the ICJ, most of the time the states that do, the states that matter will. The argument that encourages, that the ICJ encourages aggression, you should prefer all of the 1AC evidence that says that the ICJ stops escalation of disputes. Yes, the ICJ has allowed aggression against terrorists, but that's so that states can defend themselves. It's not a reason why the ICJ escalates disputes per the 1AR card, which says that it errs towards de-escalation. The final argument is that multiple decisions are necessary. That doesn't assume the mechanism of the plan or multiple 1AC cards that say that, well, that say that what the plan does is bind ourselves to ICJ judgment so that the US in the future always has to defer to the ICJ, which is not the status quo because we haven't bound ourselves to them, which means that the plan causes future decisions and solves ICJ credibility. Go to the Japan advantage. I'm going to concede all of the impact defense stuff here. I'm not going for disadvantage. The advantage counterplan obviously doesn't matter because I'm not going for the advantage it solves, but I will extend permutation to the plan and any combination of planks. They basically dropped the argument that it shields the link because it seems cooperation with Japan since it increases a whole bunch of cooperation stuff and deterring China through offensive cyber operations, which it should be enough to shield the Article 5 stuff. You shouldn't take the counterplan for them because it makes me debate 2 worlds in the 2AR, which is impossible and makes the debate structurally impossible for the affirmative. They also answered the wrong permutation. They answered perm to both, which means that it's not mutually exclusive or severance, which was the only answer. We get new 1AR spin. The 2AC who said we get new arguments because they didn't have a solvency advocate for the the counterplan, and the 2NC dropped it. Now go to the dissent. I don't need to spend very much time here because the advantage massively outweighs, but I'll answer the case turn stuff first. The warming stuff, the ICJ solves it better by encouraging multilateral cooperation. They don't have a very good answer to the argument that other actors like India and China will continue emitting post-plan, which means that crossing the continue emitting post-dissent, which means that crossing the 2-degree threshold is inevitable absent cooperation with the ICJ. The intervening actor stuff is impact uniqueness for us because it means that the ICJ controls intervening actors. It's one of the actors that stops conflict escalation. It means that absent the ICJ, conflict becomes inevitable. The no nuclear winter argument doesn't matter because we solve the warming stuff. The grid modernization doesn't matter because I'm not going for the grid impact. The argument that it solves ILAW this turn for the ILAW argument is silly. The Nicaragua case is more impact for the YC evidence, which was explained on case, but all of our LIO internal link is stronger because failure to engage with the ICJ means the US functionally loses its seat in the LIO. Now, a couple of reasons why, even if you don't buy any of that, you should assign a very low risk of the dissent. First, the 1AR made an argument that they do have a link to the plan and they do have the political capital argument, but they don't have anything tying Congress getting mad at the plan to Biden losing political capital, which means that there's no internal link to the dissent explained to the 2NR. Even if you would normally have a low threshold for escalation, the 1AR explicitly flagged this argument that there was no 2NR response, which means that there's no way that the dissent even happens. But even if you buy the internal link on the link level, the link is minimal. First, the permutation should shield it because the plan is perceived as being hard on China, but second, they basically dropped the 1AR link turn except by reading new evidence and not contextualizing it. The 1AR made a couple of arguments. First is that we shift to deterrence by allowing Japan to have a more offensive posture, which deters China, which is how policymakers would perceive the plan because their evidence is broadly about Article 5. Only we're reading specific evidence about the international precedent set by the plan, which means that there wouldn't be a hard line against there wouldn't be a hard line against the plan. I'm going to answer the link turns case arguments. It wasn't dropped in the 1AR. The 1AR made a durable fiat argument. We get to durably fiat that the plan stays in place and that there's no retrenchment because anything else means the F always gets rolled back. That 2NR didn't answer that argument, but the very last argument that I'll extend is that the 1AR made an argument that the bill would be watered down per their 1NR evidence, and that the watered down bill would not be able to solve climate change. That was the 1AR Zabala's ROIC evidence, which says that the infrastructure would be targeted in scope because of backlash from progressives, or else the things would be derailed. That obviously wouldn't be enough to solve warming because provisions would be scaled back. It means that the already marginal risk that they said solves the terminal impact, they solved better by the F. Real quick, I'm going to answer the econ stuff at the top. The ICJ advantage solved it better because it structurally prevents conflict escalation and de-escalates conflict, but on a structural level, which none of their evidence assumes. And there we also conceded no China war, which means that specific conflict won't escalate. Good debate, Wake.
We'll send it, Doc.
Good debate.
Yeah, we're done. We all good? Should I? Oh, okay. Double check. Okay, congratulations to both of you for reaching the doubles. That's really, really exciting. Debating on Monday of the NDT is an incredible accomplishment, especially for everyone here. I've been judging you all year. It's been really exciting to see you all grow and progress and make it to such a really impressive stage of the tournament and to your careers. The decision is a 5-0 for the negative from Wake Forest. Okay, I can go. I'll try to be quick because there's a lot of people. I think pretty meh DA outweighs almost zero case. The AF offense, I started to figure out this counter plan thing. I'll just skip all the details. I kicked it because I thought there is a 2AC argument that says new stuff in the 1AR is fine. The 1AR says perm shields. I thought that like a good chunk of the perm does shield, but also the counter plan is solving an advantage the AF didn't go for. So I was just like, there's really no cost to kicking this thing. The case. I went through all the EV on whether or not ICJ compliance works or doesn't. I think there's a lot more everyone could be saying about their cards. I agree the 2NR is light in time, but the 2NR is not light in warrants. And there are a lot of warrants in the 2NR on the case that I think the AF has struggled with a lot of the debate. UN Security Council prevents credibility. The existence of Article 31 allows politicization, prevents enforcement of decisions. Colombia doesn't follow. That card's like shockingly good because it's about when countries, even after they accept compulsory jurisdiction, they still don't do when it, they don't do what the ICJ tells them. The court encourages aggression. That card sucks. But whatever. Single decision insufficient. I couldn't find an egg card for it, but I do think that analytic is enough for me to look for AF evidence that says the opposite, and I struggled with that. And so I do think that I'm unclear about a single decision holding a lot of weight. Funny enough, we're all reading the same article and on ICJ cred, and more than that, we're reading the same cutting. We've just underlined it different, which actually adds a lot, like, because, it's like the AF highlights compulsory jurisdiction in a list of things, and the neg highlights the other things in the list. No one says this, but like when the 1AR and the 2AR are just like, read the card, read the card, read the card. I just like, it's really just hard to overlook that we've just all highlighted different parts of the same list of problems. AF arguments for ICJ compliance, they're okay. The cards that they solve impacts are better than I expected. Maybe causes compellence for the United States, 0 on it solves other countries. I kind of stopped reading after I looked for that. Dusich was marked before it maybe got to the one part of an AF card that they would say it. DA, there's like enough. China Hawks framed the link, which is a magnifier. Alliance commitments are sensitive. Japan doesn't want it. The public and Congress hate it. That card's the same as all the other cards, but the AF, I think, should have pointed that out a little bit more. Political capital, it's like tricky. I do agree that we need to be maybe a little bit more responsible connecting different politics concepts. But the 2NR says hard-nosed centrists are going to kind of hold Biden to the wall for the plan. It's intuitive that a really, really unpopular, toxic thing will require political capital to accomplish. It's the only impact that's extinction. It turns the case pretty substantially. The bill might get watered down, but high-speed rail's enough, and it solves leadership.
I can go. Aside from all the case, I think there needed to be a better impact comparison for me, because I think that the competitiveness add-on, I feel like it just solves the app. Like, I don't know what's a reason for why we need to have ICJ leadership if US has so much economic strength that we can control the direction of the global order. So I thought you should have maybe approached this as more like a counter plan that solves the app and needed some comparative reasons why all of those extra leadership that US gets from infrastructure wouldn't still be effective if that's not really backed up by the ICJ. I was also thinking about whether it solves warming. I think just a good tip for when you have kind of a structural thing that has a laundry list of impact, one of which could include the dissad, you need to have more explanation on how ICJ could solve that. And your evidence might not say that directly, but there needs to be some internal link that's extrapolated, whether that's better enforcement of environmental mechanism as it relates to warming. But I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more detail there, or also just like having a card that says ICJ solves warming would also help a lot. But I also think that even if we have like ICJ credibility, like if you don't actually get rid of the emissions, I don't think it solves warming. So I felt like they just kind of control the direction of impact, which warming is a most existential thing, just because all the stuff with nuclear winter, I felt like the one air really didn't contest it. And additionally, I felt like the two air were extending arguments on the DA that I thought were C minus. So like stuff about like no spillover and like the link stuff, I didn't feel like that was like the best. I wasn't sure why Twitter wasn't just extending stuff that you read cards on in the one air about like, you know, uniqueness and other things. I felt like the Twitter strategy may be like, you know, was going for all of these things. I ultimately didn't think that it really mattered. Agree with the rest of the mechanics of the DA. I feel like the negative, you know, has some link arguments about Article 5. I think PC solves some of the watered down issues. I feel like it's a big DA, solves the app. I don't know why ICJ is important. And yeah, but really impressive run. I thought your debating was really, really good. I thought 2AR could have definitely changed the game with better, like maybe impact debating and hopefully better cards, but I thought it was like, yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I think I was very, Miles, can you turn off your volume? That is throwing me off. Okay, there we go. Very similar to what was said so far. Want to echo all the positive vibes for Georgetown. Y'all have been such a pleasure to judge this year. I'm excited to see what y'all are going to do with the next 3 years. Geez. I think maybe the one major point of divergence was I thought Link Turn's case was a little bit bigger. The 2NR does not have refrain to answer fiat solves, but I understood fiat solves as the answer to Link means plan is rolled back, whereas the right evidence about oscillation speaks to a signal from declining political support, undermining the international signal of the plan. I don't think this argument is like wonderful, and I think your solvency threads for the ICJ advantage could be used to beat back against that, but I just need that application, or I think this is maybe a lot larger of a solvency takeout than you might want. I actually thought that maybe if the 2AR had just really sat down on there is no connection between doing an unpopular thing and losing PC and kind of narrated through the debate, like here are the cards they read, here is what they say. Because the closest I get is this World War 20 card that says it could cost them politically. There's danger of being cast as soft, but nothing else really hints at spillover beyond the allusions to it's kind of razor thin and there's some haggling going on. So more narration of just like, here is the debate that happened. I will go through each of their cards and what the 2NR said, because that's just an all or nothing issue. Like the case probably low, like you're going for ICJ cred, not a wonderful spot to be in. So the AF ballot there, I think that's best is just like 0 DA and just sitting in on 1. If we win this, there is nothing, might be the way to go.
I will chime in to just say that I 100% agree with WIMSAT, and especially in addition to what everyone else has said, but especially the sort of like Link turns the case argument, and the AF ballot here for me is there's no spillover between the plan's action and loss of political capital, and in combination with all of the other defensive arguments that y'all are doing a good job of making in the 2AC, like what bill are we even talking about? Like I'm a political science professor and there's no fucking bill. I don't know. How do you vote on this? I don't know. So I would have found that incredibly compelling in the 2AR to just be like, there's no spillover in the link level and there's no bill, which means you don't even know what you're voting about. So vote AF, like, why not? And that's real compelling to me. But I want to say it's such a pleasure to judge Ruben and Alex, and it's also such a pleasure to be judging these Georgetown Frosh who are just out here freaking killing it. Like D7 for life. Cannot wait to see what y'all are up to next year. But thank you for letting me judge this debate. I had a great time.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add. The places I guess where I differed from the other judges was I didn't think Link turns the case was like a super big deal, just because like it's hard for me to really like think that matters without much more kind of elaboration of like what signal is necessary to solve the AF from in the neg's eyes and like what the backlash to the plan does. Like, you know, I don't know. I just think that needs to be like packaged a little bit more for me to think it's a really big deal. I just thought like the competitiveness impact, the 1AR just didn't answer, and it was big enough to kind of like circumscribe the large LIO thing that you're going for with the ICJ advantage. I agree with Miles that I was really surprised at how good your ICJ impact dev was, but the place where I thought the neg, reduced the advantage just with like the kind of like not huge amount of time that the 2NR had was just kind of like the AF does not durably bind the United States to the ICJ and kind of like future decisions, right? So like, I read through like most of my decision time that I spent was reading through the AF ICJ evidence just to kind of like make sure I understood what was going on, or hopefully I do. I don't know, I'm probably wrong. But my understanding is we said after Nicaragua, we said the ICJ like does not have compulsory jurisdiction over anything that we do. And I don't quite understand why the plan changes that, even if it cites the existence of the ICJ opinion as the reason that the NDT with Japan needs to be circumscribed. I just was looking for a card that was a little bit more kind of about the AF. And I just think that like that's the place where this advantage has a really kind of narrow choke point that the neg was able to exploit and reduce it a lot. Just in that sense. But I think even if that weren't the case, like warming's big, you have a laundry list that says environmental protection, which isn't really warming because like we got to like fund stuff and like kind of build infrastructure, and like I don't think the ICJ is going to be like hey China, retire your coal plants, and so it's just nuclear doesn't cause extinctions, like warming is like bigger. It just the DA was like big, and the kind of like no connection between link internal link thing. I think that could have been developed a little earlier as a 2AC argument, and I felt like there was enough kind of connection. I agree that was a place where the 2NR wasn't perfect on the politics DA, but that all the link evidence and internal link evidence suggests that like it's a slog. You gotta be building bridges. You can't be doing stuff that's gonna cause, it's like the most Cro-Magnon version of the politics DA, but it was kind of enough to carry the day. But yeah, echo all the other things that the judges said about great debate. Really a privilege to judge Georgetown future bright. Good tournament. Happy to answer questions if you all got them.
So would a card that, on the politics set that kind of connected the argument we made to like the no backlash thing to PC have been really helpful in getting it to zero?
Yeah. Compartmentalization card.
This like program card, I think I remember, but it's like issues are compartmentalized.
I was going to say, we got to get some more EV in the 2AC on politics, I think. And that is a part of the set. Like analytics are great, but you're asking the analytics to do a lot. The ICJ obviously solves all of this, and kind of some link defensive arguments that don't really have EV. I think that just shifting to a bit more card heavy 2AC on this kind of thing would help, just in general in politics as we get more Biden DAs the next few years.
And in terms
2AC's got to go faster. It's a speedy speech. Speed up.
The advantage, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I think we got a little delay. The advantage counterplan section in the 2AC was a little bit repetitive and a little bit too beefy. Like a lot of that stuff is things that could have been developed later in the debate. Like I think you can breeze through that because like when you got to the advantage counterplan, I was like, oh, okay, great. They got a lot of time to like load up on the politics DA. And then when you got the politics, I was like, oh, where'd that time go? And I think it was just too much advantage counterplan stuff. But go ahead.
Did you think the sort of idea of not like going for advantage one was the correct one, or did you think that we had
100%, 100% correct?
Cool.
And I also thought like the just the number one thing I would suggest, Ruby, that you change about the 2NR is like you're just like this counterplan is doing very well. You do not need nearly the amount of time on advantage one, given the counterplan. Like totally switch the time allocation. I would even put ICJ advantage ahead of the other advantage in the order, just given the counterplan.
Yeah, unless Barney has other questions.
I think I'm good, thanks. Good debate, Wade. Good luck. Thank you all so much for that.
Good tournament.
Good luck.